They say motherhood is a lifelong journey. I used to wholeheartedly believe that sentiment. Even now, aspects of that belief remain. However, no one ever adequately prepares you for the profound loneliness that can accompany your children's growth. The feeling that they've forgotten you remain an individual with your own needs and desires. My name is Evelyn Reed, and I'm 72 years young. I've dedicated my life to homemaking. No prestigious career, no accolades, no exotic getaways, just early mornings, endless grocery lists, meticulously packed lunches, and countless years of selflessly prioritizing everyone else's needs. Currently, I reside with my son David, his wife, Isabella, and my granddaughter Lily. We share a comfortable suburban home, a home I significantly contributed to purchasing, I might add. It's a detail they rarely, if ever, acknowledge. I manage most household tasks. I meticulously clean the kitchen after every dinner. I collect Lily from school whenever Isabella works late shifts. I diligently fold laundry and tend to the garden's flora. I consistently replenish the refrigerator, anticipating our household's depleting supplies, an unspoken responsibility. They never explicitly request my assistance, nor do they offer expressions of gratitude. It's simply expected. It isn't that they're unkind, they're generally polite, but I perceive it in the way their gazes glide past me during conversations, their awareness of my existence flickering only when a task demands attention. Lily, once a sweet, affectionate child who would nestle in my lap, requesting bedtime stories, has transformed into an 11-year-old who views me as the quintessential old lady who shrinks her sweaters and incessantly nags about excessive screen time. Last week, Isabella rolled her eyes when I gently reminded Lily to express gratitude for her dinner. She's simply exhausted, Isabella declared dismissively. Let her be. And so I did, as I always do. David rarely engages in conversation with me now. We shared a deep bond during his childhood. He would hold my hand on our walks to school. He would confide in me, seeking comfort amidst childhood teases. I was once his entire world. Now, I'm merely mom, a background presence, summoned only when babysitting arrangements fall through. Frequently after everyone else has retired for the night, I find solace in the garden. I gaze at the celestial tapestry, contemplating my continued presence. I dedicated my entire life to this family, yet I feel like a piece of forgotten furniture, familiar, functional, yet utterly unnoticed. I don't intend to sound bitter. It's not reflective of my true nature. I love my family. This sentiment has never wavered, but recently the love feels unbalanced. I provide, they receive. That's the rhythm of our household. Will the celebration truly center on me? My childhood dreams weren't ambitious. I merely longed for a small, harmonious family life, a home to nurture. I believed that would suffice. When I married Arthur, we were young and optimistic. He held a stable position at a local publishing house. I remained at home, managing all domestic affairs. In those early years, he would bring home simple flowers from the local market, not extravagant blooms, but humble daisies or sunflowers. I cherished those small gestures of affection. However, after several years, the flowers ceased, as did the kind words. Arthur grew increasingly reserved and distant. Perhaps the pressures of his work overwhelmed him, or maybe he simply stopped noticing me. Despite this, I persevered. I rationalized it as a wife's duty. Moreover, by then, we had David. David was my beacon of hope. He possessed a delightful laugh and expressive eyes, perpetually brimming with curiosity. I poured all my energy and love into him. Every ounce of my being was dedicated to his well-being. When David left for college, I wept for 3 days. It wasn't born from worry, but from the pride I felt, intertwined with the knowledge that things would inevitably change. And they did. He met Isabella during his final year of university. She was intelligent, refined, and self-assured, the epitome of sophistication, seeming to effortlessly belong in upscale establishments. I confess, I felt somewhat out of place in her presence. They married within a year. Their initial financial circumstances were modest, inhabiting a small apartment with antiquated plumbing and furniture. I recall the biting chill of that first winter. David attempted to feign indifference, but I perceived his discomfort. I discreetly sent them a space heater and covered their electricity bill that month. Then came Lily. Isabella experienced a challenging pregnancy, suffering from morning sickness and persistent fatigue. I moved in to assist, preparing meals, providing foot rubs, and attending to the baby's needs throughout the night. They never formally requested my help. I simply provided it because I understood their need. Years passed, and I remained. Even after Arthur's passing, I didn't return to solitary living. David reasoned, "It makes logistical sense for you to live with us now." And so I obliged. I sold our home and invested the majority of the proceeds into their new house. Initially, they expressed reluctance, at least verbally, but I insisted. "It's for the family," I declared. I question whether they even recall that statement. Now, it's their house, under their names, while I occupy the cramped guest room, with the squeaky door and imperfectly sealed window. They don't treat me poorly, but neither do they treat me with the respect I deserve. I had hoped, perhaps naively, that this anniversary celebration would be different, a moment where I wouldn't be relegated to the periphery. I even unearthed an old photograph of Arthur, David, and myself, from David's infancy, radiating happiness. I placed it on the kitchen counter that morning, hoping it would be displayed, but an hour later, it vanished, discarded or hidden away. I don't know. All I know is that no one mentioned it. The morning of the party, I awoke prematurely. The sky was still blushing at the horizon, and the house was enveloped in quietude. I donned my robe and descended to prepare coffee, a ritual no one explicitly expected, yet I consistently performed. David had described the party as simple and intimate, a small gathering of friends, neighbors, and modest refreshments. However, knowing my son, I anticipated an emphasis on aesthetics, aimed at picture-perfect social media posts, essential for his career in the insurance industry. The majority of the day was spent assisting Isabella in the kitchen. Her impatience was palpable. Every few minutes, she checked the time, muttering about our perceived tardiness. "Mom, could you check the cupcakes and prepare the salad? And could you also set the table outdoors?" Instructions were fired like rapid-fire bullets. I quietly complied, suppressing any complaints. It was the norm. Around 2 p.m., Lily stormed into the kitchen, engrossed in her phone. "I wanted fairy lights, not these dreary lanterns," she whined. "I can hang the lights after we've finished here," I offered gently. Lily didn't even look up. Whatever. I averted my gaze before Isabella witnessed the hurt on my face. It's astonishing how deeply a child's words can wound, especially when that child is your granddaughter. By 5 p.m., the house thrummed with activity, laughter from the patio, the clinking of glasses, and soft music emanating from the speakers. I stood in the kitchen doorway, observing the scene for a moment. As feared, I blended seamlessly into the background. No one even noticed my presence. A small banner celebrating 45 years of love, Evelyn and Arthur, was strung across the fence. But Arthur had been gone for 6 years. There was no heartfelt speech, no celebratory toast, no invitation for me to share sentiments, merely a collection of individuals engaging in polite conversation about work, weather, and vacation plans. Lily was showing her friend around the yard, gesturing as if she owned the entire property. "My room's upstairs. My parents' room is over there. That garden patch, Grandma grows unusual herbs there." Unusual herbs, I chuckled softly to myself. Basil and thyme, so unconventional, right? I remained by the punch bowl for the majority of the evening, refilling drinks, assisting with dishes, and discreetly cleaning spills. At one point, I inquired if Isabella required assistance with the cake. "Oh right," she responded, distracted, engrossed in her phone. "Yeah, go ahead, that's fine." And so I did. I lit the candles myself. I carried it to the table, smiling despite the throbbing ache in my legs. The applause was perfunctory. Finally, David stood. Everyone, thanks for coming. We're here to celebrate my mom. 5 years ago today, she married my dad, and well, yeah, it's special. That was the extent of the speech. They sang a truncated rendition of Happy Anniversary, and then everyone devoured the cake. No one solicited my input. No one presented flowers. No one offered a hug. I stood there, a paper plate in hand, pondering how an event intended to celebrate me could feel so profoundly inadequate. Still, I smiled, a habitual response. But deep within, I began to experience an emotion I hadn't felt in a long time, a weary exhaustion, a weariness with maintaining a facade of invisibility. The cake was cut, guests dispersed, and I cleaned up the remnants of the celebration, still maintaining my weary smile. Sophie burst from the house, holding her white hoodie aloft, her face contorted in anger. "Grandma, what did you do to my sweater?" I looked up, bewildered. "What happened, sweetheart? It's shrunk. It's tiny now. I told you not to touch it," she shrieked. "I didn't know, honey. I just did the laundry as always." The tag indicated it was dryer safe. "Oh, you ruined it," she screamed, retreating towards the kitchen. I assumed that was the end of it. I was mistaken. A minute later, I followed her inside to offer another apology, though I felt no remorse. I simply didn't want to leave things unresolved. Upon entering the kitchen, she stood by the counter, glaring at the kettle. Before I could speak, she seized the handle and flung the boiling water towards me. I couldn't react swiftly enough. The scalding water splashed against my leg, searing through my dress and burning my skin. I gasped, stumbling backward, grabbing the counter for support. The pain was excruciating, like a flash of fire. "Sophie!" I cried out. She stood there, appearing startled, but not apologetic. Isabella and David rushed in. "What happened?" David asked. "She threw hot water on me," I gasped, still trembling. "It wasn't that hot," Sophie mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Isabella touched my arm, as if I were overreacting. "She didn't mean to, Hazel. She's just a kid. She's 11, I retorted, struggling to maintain composure amidst the pain. "That wasn't an accident." "She was upset," Isabella explained. "You shrank her sweater." My jaw dropped. "You're blaming me?" "No one's blaming anyone," David interjected hastily. "Let's all just calm down, okay? We don't want to cause a scene. A scene at my own anniversary party." With a burning leg and trembling knees, I stood surrounded by people who treated my pain as an inconvenience. I looked at Sophie, who didn't even offer an apology. I looked at Isabella, already checking her phone, and I looked at my son, my only child, more concerned about potential neighborhood gossip than his mother standing there with boiling water on her leg. In that instant, something within me fractured, not loudly, not angrily, but definitively, like a door in my heart, quietly clicking shut. All I could think was, is this what I dedicated my life to? I returned outside, my damp dress clinging to my skin. No one questioned my shaken demeanor. No one even noticed. I finished cleaning up, smiled at the remaining guests, waved goodbye, and retreated to my small guest room, locking the door, sitting on the bed, and allowing the tears to flow silently, not just for the burn, but for every instance I had suppressed my pain, for every time I was told to remain silent, for every time I was dismissed as overreacting when I was simply hurt. That night, sleep evaded me. I stared at the ceiling, the burn on my leg throbbing, and a thought began to blossom, like a seed cracking open. "It's time." The following morning, I skipped breakfast. I heard the sounds of activity downstairs, mugs clinking, the back door sliding open, David's voice inquiring about his sunglasses just as always. But I remained in my room, sitting quietly with the curtains drawn and an old box on my lap. The burn on my thigh had developed into a blistered red patch. I hadn't shown it to anyone. What would be the point? 27,623.48. Still there, still waiting for the day I would choose myself, and suddenly the shame I had harbored about being selfish vanished. All I felt was clarity. I could leave, I could move out, I could begin anew on my own terms. They believed I was trapped, devoid of options, merely grandma, a shadow drifting through their lives, clinging to them like dead weight. They were wrong. Finding a new residence, packing essentials, contacting the lawyer who managed Clara's estate, and most importantly, departing without warning. No speeches, no pleading, no guilt, just a quiet exit. Because if there's one lesson I've learned, it's that people don't value what they believe will always be available. So I would show them what it meant when I was no longer there. A few photo albums, my favorite teacup, the lavender dress from the party, now laundered and folded, and of course, the folder containing Clara's inheritance documents. I left behind everything from the kitchen, the dishes, the blender, even the microwave, items I'd acquired over the years. I let them keep the material possessions. I was reclaiming something far more valuable, myself. Around 6 p.m., I zipped my suitcase, sitting on the edge of the bed for a moment of reflection. The burn on my thigh had faded to a faint pink scar, but the memory remained vivid. They hadn't mentioned it once. Not David, not Isabella, not even Sophie. I stood, took a deep breath, and went downstairs. David was on the couch, watching television. Isabella was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. Sophie was absorbed in her phone at the dining table, legs propped on a chair. "I'm leaving," I announced. David looked up. "Where to?" "I'm moving out," I replied. Isabella stopped chopping. "Wait. What?" "I've found a place. I'll be residing there from now on." Sophie barely glanced up. David laughed, as if I were joking. "Mom, be serious. You don't have a pension. Where would you even go?" I smiled. "I'll manage." "You can't just leave," Isabella protested. "We rely on you. What about Lily's pickup schedule? What about help with dinner, laundry, and—" "You'll figure it out," I said softly. "You're being unreasonable," David snapped. "Don't throw a tantrum just because of a sweater." "It wasn't just a sweater," I said calmly. "Oh my God," Isabella groaned. "It was an accident." "She's a kid." I looked at both of them, devoid of anger or yelling, just silence, and the unvarnished truth. She poured boiling water on me. "You said she's just a kid. You didn't even check if I was okay." That statement revealed everything I needed to know. David rolled his eyes. "You're blowing it out of proportion." "No," I replied. I finally opened my eyes. I picked up my suitcase and walked to the door. David stood up. "Mom, come on. Don't do this. Don't be dramatic." I paused, turning to face him, and uttered words I never anticipated speaking aloud. "I spent my whole life prioritizing everyone else. It's my turn now." And then I walked out. No one followed. The building was taller than any I'd ever envisioned living in. It boasted a shimmering glass facade, and a doorman who greeted me with genuine warmth, as if my presence actually mattered. "Good evening, Miss Reed," he said, taking my suitcase. "Welcome home." That word felt strangely wonderful. My apartment was on the 23rd floor. I'd quietly viewed it a week earlier, during an afternoon. Isabella believed I was taking a walk to clear my head. I hadn't mentioned it. I wasn't ready for the inevitable questions, or worse, the feigned concern. But the moment I saw this space, I knew. It was small, yet it sparkled. Wide windows offered panoramic views of city lights. It featured a soft gray sofa and a small balcony, enough room for a chair and a plant. No peeling paint, no raised voices, no one asking me what was for dinner. I unpacked slowly, positioning each item thoughtfully. For the first time in years, I didn't need to accommodate anyone else. When I placed my photograph of Arthur and David on the shelf, I didn't cry. I simply admired it for a moment, then adjusted it slightly to optimize the lighting. That night, I made tea solely for myself, and sat on the balcony in quietude. No clanging dishes, no overhead footsteps, no one calling mom from another room. Just me, the city, and the gentle rhythm of my own breathing. I expected to feel lonely, but instead I felt light. The next morning, I contacted Clara's lawyer. His voice was calm and professional. "Ah, Evelyn, I wondered when you'd finally reach out." I smiled. "I'm ready to utilize the funds for myself." He chuckled. "It's yours, all of it. You can finally stop seeking permission to live." That statement resonated with me throughout the day. Stop asking for permission to live. And so, I began pursuing small desires I had always harbored but never fulfilled. I ordered new clothing, not extravagant, but soft, well-fitting garments that restored my sense of self. I enrolled in beginner piano lessons. I've always loved classical music, particularly Debussy, but never had the time or energy to learn. I bought a journal. I signed up for a painting workshop at the community center. I didn't inform anyone. This phase of my life wasn't about usefulness. It was about being, and I was just getting started. Cook, house cleaner, laundry folder, personal shopper, child therapist, tutor, nurse, chauffeur, babysitter, a 24/7 help desk that never went offline, and I performed all of it with a smile, believing that was love. But sitting in this tranquil apartment, a profound realization dawned upon me. Love and labor are not synonymous. You can love your family and still assert, "I deserve rest." You can care deeply and still declare, "I'm not your maid." You can give your heart, but not your entire life. I had spent so long diminishing myself to fit into their world. I hadn't realized I could create one of my own. A shift inside me. At lunchtime, I met a woman named June, from my building. She was 70, wearing vibrant red lipstick and comfortable sneakers. "You're new," she said with a grin. "You have the kind of face that looks like it finally exhaled." I laughed. "Yeah, maybe I did." We shared coffee on the rooftop patio. She shared her story of divorce 20 years prior. "The day I stopped folding his socks was the day I got my soul back," she said, sipping her espresso. That statement resonated deeply. "You're allowed to exist without proving your worth." I read it aloud twice, softly. Then I underlined it, needing to believe it. Tomorrow was my first piano lesson. I was nervous but excited, like a schoolgirl again. Isabella once referred to me as a ghost in their house. Not directly, but I overheard her whispering on the phone. "She just floats around like she's part of the furniture." She was right. I was a ghost, but not anymore. I'm not haunting anyone else's life now. Finally living mine. Subject: "Let's talk, Mom," from David Walker. I stared at it before opening it. "Hi, Mom. I hope you're doing well. Sophie's been asking about you lately. She misses you. We were considering if you might join us for dinner this weekend. Just us. Nothing extravagant. We'd love to see you. Also, if you happen to be available sometime next week, I wanted to discuss something. We're experiencing a slight financial setback. Just a temporary issue. Mortgage, car insurance. You know how it is. Anyway, hope you're doing okay. Let us know about dinner. Love, David." The initial part of the email sounded sweetly genuine. The latter portion felt like a string attached to a balloon. Or perhaps, I was the balloon. They missed me. But also, could I assist with the bills? The same people who hadn't contacted me in weeks. The same people who had witnessed my departure with a suitcase and hadn't attempted to stop me. I took a deep breath, closed the email, then reopened it. The words remained unchanged. No mention of Sophie's outburst. No apology for the burn. No expression of remorse for my hurt feelings. Just a gentle tug to reel me back in. A silent expectation that I would acquiesce, as always. Peppermint tea with honey and a single biscuit. He smiled, handing me my drink. You look peaceful today. I nodded. I feel peaceful, but in my mind, I circled that email. For most of my life, I would have responded affirmatively without hesitation. Of course, I'd attend dinner. Of course, I'd assist with the bills. That's what mothers do, right? But this time, I opened my phone and replied, Hi, David. Thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to hear Sophie is doing well, but I won't be attending dinner, not this weekend, or the next. I require some time and space to be alone, and I'm finally learning that I'm entitled to say no. Take care, Mom. No lengthy explanation, no apology, no promises of future assistance, just a clear response. I hit send, closed the app, and slowly finished my tea as the afternoon sun warmed my face. Let them grapple with the silence for once. It arrived late, nearly midnight. I was reading a light, romantic novel where characters openly expressed their feelings and everyone achieved closure. Real life wasn't that straightforward, but it was comforting to pretend. My phone buzzed. I anticipated a news alert or weather update, but it was a message from Isabella. That surprised me. We hadn't spoken since the night I left. Not a word, not even a superficial check-in, not even a forwarded meme. I hesitated, then tapped the screen. Hi Hazel, I hope you're okay. I know things became tense, but Sophie truly misses you, and we've been discussing what transpired. I believe we all could have handled things more effectively. We're having dinner on Sunday, just the three of us. If you're amenable, we'd love for you to join us. Also, I hate to bring this up, but Derek's paycheck was delayed, and funds are tight. If you could possibly assist with this month's tuition for Sophie, until things stabilize, we'd be incredibly grateful. No pressure, of course. I hope to see you soon. I stared at the screen for a long time. It was polite, soft, even gentle, but it never stated, "We're sorry." It never acknowledged, "What happened to you was wrong." It skipped over the incident where I was hurt and jumped straight to the point where I was needed again. The choice? I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I got up, went to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. I stood under the soft ceiling light, holding the cold glass, feeling the familiar tug. The old me would have agreed, would have felt guilty, would have thought, it wasn't that bad, maybe I overreacted, maybe they genuinely miss me. But the new me, the one who had finally taken a breath, knew better. Alicia, I appreciate your message. I do, but I want to be perfectly clear. What occurred wasn't solely about a sweater or a delayed paycheck. It was about years of being overlooked, disrespected, treated as a backup plan. Sophie may be a child, but she's old enough to distinguish between frustration and violence. And you were old enough to defend me, but you didn't. As for the money, no. You've all had enough of me, enough of my time, enough of my care, enough of my silence. I won't be attending dinner. I won't be transferring any funds to your account. I hope things improve for you, but this time, it won't be at my expense. I reread it twice before sending. It didn't feel cruel, it felt clear. And that, I realized, was unprecedented for me. The piano keys felt heavier than anticipated. My fingers hovered, uncertain. I was in the practice room, on the 4th floor of my building, a bright, softly lit space, with a small upright piano that most residents ignored. But for me it was a quiet dream, realized. My teacher, Leela, sat beside me with a warm smile. Don't worry about perfection, she said. This isn't about performance, it's about feeling. I nodded. We started slowly, with simple chords. I fumbled. I laughed. She laughed with me, not at me, and somehow, even my mistakes felt musical, a rediscovered part of. As the lesson concluded, Leela said, "Next week we'll begin with Claire de Lune. You said it's your favorite, right?" I smiled. Yes, always has been, even when I didn't understand the title. I just loved how it made me feel. She gently closed the piano lid. It's a beautiful piece, soft yet strong, just like you. That surprised me. No one had ever described me that way before. Strong, yes, but soft and strong. I didn't know you could be both. I left that room, feeling lighter than when I entered, a moment that belonged entirely to me. That evening, the building hosted a small gathering for residents, coffee, cookies, and an open mic piano session. June from upstairs nudged me toward the piano. Come on, play something. I'm not ready, I said. You're never ready, she grinned. That's the trick. Do it anyway. So I sat down. I didn't play a complete song, just a few notes, the ones Lila had taught me, a soft melody, a beginning. But as the sound filled the lounge, people paused. Some looked up from their mugs. One man closed his eyes. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, I wasn't background music. I wasn't someone's assistant, someone's substitute, someone's ghost. I was Evelyn, and I was being heard. When I finished, there was gentle applause, not loud, not forced, just enough to convey, we saw you. We felt that, a small, significant truth. Afterwards, I stepped onto the rooftop garden. The wind was cool but gentle. I stood there, arms crossed, heart open, and I thought, maybe healing doesn't always involve fire and shouting. Maybe sometimes it comes one note at a time, and that was enough for that night. Almost a month had passed since I responded to Isabella's message. The silence stretched between us, like a long cold hallway, and honestly, I was content with that. I had found a rhythm in my days. Piano on Mondays, painting on Wednesdays, tea with June on Friday. I was beginning to feel like a complete person again. A person with her own schedule, her own choices, her own peace, until the letter arrived. Yes, an actual handwritten letter, slipped under my apartment door. Initially, I assumed it was a flyer, or a neighbor's mistake, but when I picked it up and saw the familiar script, my hands stilled. It was from Sophie, my granddaughter. Hi Grandma, I don't really know how to write letters, so sorry if this is weird. Mom and Dad don't know I'm sending this. I wanted to say, I'm sorry for what I did. I was angry and I acted stupidly. You didn't deserve that. I miss you. I miss your pancakes, and your smell, and how you always tuck in the corners of the bed like magic. Things at home are kind of tense. Mom and Dad fight a lot about money and stuff. I heard them say your name a few times. I don't really get what's happening, but I hope you're okay. Love, Sophie. I sat on the edge of my couch, holding the letter in both hands. Her handwriting was messy, adorned with little hearts over the eyes, the kind of letter only a child would write, yet one that pierced me deeply. Not because I felt guilty, but because I remembered she was still growing, still learning, still shaping her sense of right and wrong. For a moment, I wanted to fold the letter and rush to their house, hug her, bake cookies, be the grandmother she missed. But then I recalled the burn, and how no one else, not her parents, not David, had taken responsibility. Sophie's letter was a beacon of light, yes, but it didn't erase the darkness I had traversed. So I didn't reply, not yet. I carefully folded the letter and placed it in my journal. Maybe I would respond one day. Maybe I would respond one day. Maybe I would see her again. But this time, I wouldn't rush back just because a crack appeared in the door. This time, I would return only when I was ready. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. I was at home, enveloped in a book and a warm blanket, enjoying the sound of rain against my window. The apartment felt like a safe haven, quiet, peaceful, mine. Then the phone rang. Not a message, a call. David. I stared at the screen. I hadn't heard his voice since the day I left. My finger hovered over the decline button. I almost ignored it, but something within me said, no more avoidance. So I answered, hello. His voice was flat and strained. Mom. Hi, Derek. You could have told us you were sitting on a fortune, he snapped. You let us believe you were broke while we were drowning in bills. There it was, not a greeting, not an inquiry about my well-being, straight to the money. I didn't react. I simply stated, that money was never yours. We're your family, he retorted sharply. Families help each other. I let out a small, dry laugh. You mean like how you helped me when I got burned? Silence. You mean like the way Isabella told me I was overreacting? Like how Sophie didn't even apologize until weeks later and only in secret? That was, he began. No, I interrupted. Don't explain it. Just listen. I sat up straighter. My voice remained calm but carried weight. For years I gave you everything. I helped raise your daughter. I cleaned your home. I gave you my time, my labor, my savings. I did it out of love. But you started treating it like a service. That's not fair. What's not fair is that I couldn't even be safe in your home. What's not fair is you acting like I owe you something when you gave me nothing but silence. When I needed you most. He fell silent again. Then, finally, he said, you're turning your back on us, Mom. No, I replied. You turned your back on me first. I just finally stopped pretending not to notice. His voice shifted, becoming angry and bitter. You think you're better than us now? Living in your fancy building, playing piano, acting like a queen? That's not real life. It's my real life, I said. And it's better than being treated like a ghost in someone else's. You're using money to punish us. I'm using boundaries to protect myself. He exhaled sharply. Don't bother coming back, ever. I wasn't planning to, I said. Goodbye, David. And I hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time. The rain continued falling outside, soft and steady. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. I was calm, not because it didn't hurt, but because I knew I had finally said what needed to be said. I had found my voice, and I had used it. It's remarkable how quickly peace can become your new normal. I anticipated missing them more. I thought I'd sit by the window daily, wondering about Sophie's activities, what Isabella was cooking, whether David was still angry. But I didn't, not in the way I expected. I missed the idealized versions of them, the ones I used to envision, when I still believed my love could mend everything. But I didn't miss the reality, the silence, the disrespect, the feeling of being needed yet never truly seen. My days had structure now, not because anyone dictated my actions, but because I chose them. Mondays were for piano lessons. I learned to play the first page of Clair de Lune. Lila commented that my hands were growing stronger. Tuesdays, I volunteered at a local women's shelter, sorting clothes, making tea, listening to stories that resonated with my own experiences and those of Clara. Wednesdays were for painting. Nothing elaborate, just flowers, buildings, faces. I wasn't skilled, but I wasn't trying to impress anyone. That was the beauty of it. Thursdays, I met June and her small book club. We read stories about women who broke free, who walked away, who found joy after pain. And Fridays? Fridays were for me. I'd stroll through the farmer's market alone, purchase fresh flowers, prepare a quiet dinner, and watch the sunset from my balcony. No interruptions, no demands. It felt like breathing for the first time in years. I didn't communicate with David or Isabella again, but one morning, I found myself thinking about Sophie, not the angry girl, but the little one who used to fall asleep in my arms, the one who drew me stick figure cards and whispered, "You're my favorite person." So I performed a simple act. I established a scholarship fund in Clara's name, with a note indicating it could be used for Sophie's future education if needed. No announcement, no letter, no claim of credit, just a quiet gift, mirroring Clara's generosity towards me. Love doesn't always require a return address. My apartment no longer felt new. It felt like home. The rug I chose, the books I selected, the picture frames I filled, not with family portraits, but with photographs of places I yearned to visit. I wasn't waiting for an invitation to return. I wasn't reserving space for people who wouldn't reciprocate. I had redesigned not only my life, but my understanding of love. It wasn't about sacrifice anymore. It was about balance, choice, respect, and I possessed all three. 1 year to the day since I left David's house. 1 year since the party where they celebrated my anniversary, while I stood in the background like a shadow. Now I stood in the center of my own apartment, stringing soft fairy lights around the windows. My favorite tea brewed in the kitchen. Piano music played softly from a Bluetooth speaker. It wasn't Claire de Lune today, but something gentle, something joyful. This wasn't a party for others. This was a quiet celebration for myself. June arrived first, carrying a box of lemon tarts. "You're glowing," she smiled, entering my apartment. "I bought mascara," I said proudly. "For the first time in 10 years. She laughed. "Watch out, world." Then came Lila, my piano teacher, with a small framed print of sheet music that read, "You played for yourself, and that was enough." I nearly wept when I read it. 3 neighbors arrived, bearing flowers and hugs. Someone brought wine. Someone else brought a card that simply said, "Thank you for being exactly who you are." No one asked me to serve anything. No one expected me to clean up. They simply sat, talked, listened, laughed. With me, not at me, not around me, but with me. At one point, June stood and raised her glass. "To Evelyn," she said, "who discarded everyone's expectations and built a brand new life from the ground up." Everyone cheered softly. I laughed. "I didn't throw everything away," I said, raising my own glass, "just the things that kept me small." And then I added, 1 year ago, I walked out of a house I helped build. I left behind people I loved, and I took something with me that no one expected. Myself, my time, my dignity, my voice. And it turns out that was more valuable than anything I gave them. They applauded again, and for the first time in my life, I stood in a room filled with people who truly saw me, not as a helper, not as a placeholder, not as someone to utilize when convenient, but as Evelyn, simply Evelyn. Happy anniversary to my freedom. Then I closed the book, smiled, and went to bed.